So this video is going to cover triad inversions. So what is an inversion? Basically, any kind of triad that's inverted means that the root of the triad is not the lowest part or the bass note. So for example, I'm drawing a C major triad. We would call this root position based that it's a C major triad. The bottom note is the C. And you can also tell because they are stacked thirds. Let's draw a couple in inversions. So first off, let's draw a C major triad in first inversion. If we put, instead of the C in the bass tone, we'll put the E in the bass tone. What I mean by bass tone basically is the lowest sounding pitch. And in this case, all I've done is drawn the C above instead of below. So this one we would call first inversion. You can see the third of the chord is in the lowest sounding pitch. And then of course the next one would be second inversion, and that's where the fifth of the chord is the lowest written or sounding pitch. So here you have a C major triad in root position, first inversion, second inversion. Let's do a couple more in a different key. So here we have an E major triad. Just put an R underneath it just to signify that is in root position. Again, you can tell that it's in root position because they are stacked thirds. Whereas if in first inversion, where the third is the lowest tone, we are not stacked in thirds. Here we have a third here between G sharp and B, but then B to E, again going bottom up, that's a fourth. So not stacked thirds. That should be your first clue that it's not in root position, and therefore check to see what the lowest sounding tone is. In this case, G sharp, the third of the chord of the triad, means it's in first inversion. And again, second inversion, you have the fifth of the triad in the bass tone. So there's an E major triad. This also works just as well for minor triads. Let's explore a couple minor triads in bass clef. Here I'm drawing an E flat minor triad in bass clef. So again, this is root position. Let's draw a couple in first and then in second inversion. If you have manuscript paper, it would be great to do this along with the video, just to kind of double check your answers and make sure you're doing it correctly. So here we go. The first on the left you can see in root position. Most people don't write an R underneath it, but just for the purpose of this video, so we all know that that's root position. First inversion, so the third of the triad is going to be in the bottom, the bottom note. So look at the third. E flat's the root, G flat is the third. So G flat is now in the bottom. The next note's B flat, and then the E flat up here. Again, we're drawing E flat minor triad first inversion. Second inversion, that means the B flat is going to be the bottom sounding note. How about a couple more? There's our B minor triad, first inversion. Again, the third is the lowest written note. There's your first inversion. Second inversion, F sharp, the fifth of the triad, the lowest sounding or written note. This creates a little bit of different color, different variation in the sound, just playing them in root position. Also, it's good to know that you can have them written in kind of an expanded position versus just a block simple position. Let's draw a couple of those for you. We ended with a B minor triad, so let's go back to a B minor. So here we have a B minor triad. That's a B in the bass, a B octave above, F sharp, B, and a D. So we have all the components of a B minor triad. Well, you can tell that's in root position. So what if we drew the same chord structure on top, but we put an F sharp in the bottom? What inversion would that be? Think about what the actual B minor triad is and what F sharp is in the B minor triad, because that is our lowest written tone. F sharp is the lowest written tone, B minor triad. That's going to give us second inversion. And likewise, if we had a D in the bottom. For example, apologize, it's kind of sloppily written, the D, but that is a B minor chord with a D in the bass. So that would be first inversion. Doesn't matter where, as far as how low it is in the register. Whatever is the lowest sounding or lowest written pitch, that's your bass tone, and that can determine what inversion your triad is in. So that covers briefly triad inversions. Good luck.